Okay, I think we're going to start over at table 8.
Thanks, Claire. Delighted to start it over here. I mean, the first question is self-evident. I don't think anybody's going to argue that QS have been slow to embrace BIM. The reasons why, I mean, everybody in the room will be reasonably familiar. If I may pass the book to the designers, I think traditionally structural engineers and services engineers through the fabricators have used a lot more 3D modelling in their work than, say, the architectural profession. So I think Trevor used lonely BIM. You have this gentleman here has on projects produced full BIM models for the M&E, but the rest of the designers aren't on board. But that only lays the blame on others' door briefly. For quantity surveyors, I suppose at the moment it's a vicious circle. There aren't a huge number of projects in Ireland with the critical mass to justify full BIM models. There's a lot of cut and carve work out there. There's a lot of smaller projects that don't lend themselves to it. And then there's the other side of the vicious circle, which is time and money. It's the worst time. It's the time we should be investing in BIM in terms of time and money, but it's the worst time possible in terms of time and money to embrace BIM because you're too busy trying to churn out lots of small jobs to keep the show on the road. So the size of the projects is an issue, and the time and the money available to do these things from the QS and other designers. This gentleman's a contractor, and a lot of there's a big move towards design and build and working for contractors, and that actually might drive the process along more so. The second one, I mean, the role of the quantity surveyor has changed radically. The old-fashioned bill of quantities is not the be-all and end-all, but that value-added analysis is still there. BIM is just another means of doing it, but Trevor alluded to it. The model may spit out a volume of concrete or a volume of steel, but you're going to get the scale rule out, throw it on the length and the width of the building, and do your rough checks. But at the end of the day, the client, it's not the quantities, it's what you do with them. It's interpreting the quantities, working out where the money is, whether it's concrete frame v steel frame, the implications on M&E, cooling, air conditioning, structure, length, width, building, all the things we always did. Maybe in a better world we'll have more time to do those. The quantities only inform the analysis. Quantity surveyors want to be adding value and telling people where the money is. And the last one, I mean, what contribution? The quantity surveyor just needs to move forward in the chain rather than being the piggy at the end of the queue. He needs to get more involved. Whether it's explaining to the designers what we need to pull out of it in terms of quantities and rules of measurement, or just inputting with the designers to try to get more out of the model. And that's really that from ourselves.
Perfect, thank you.
Jen, take that.
Okay, we want to move down to table 4. Get some answers. Damien, thank you.
We never got past question 1. But I just briefly, in relation to question 1, we said that our QS is slow to embrace. Yes, they are, but it's probably because the number of design teams currently designing BIM is not forcing us to invest time in BIM. And if everyone was using BIM, it would force you. If architects, you run with the good BIM, the bad BIM, and the ugly BIM. If there's good architects, you want to use good architects. The bad architects get left behind, and the client can use the good architects. So you'll be getting better quality BIM. And if you get better quality BIM models, you'll be using them and taking off the quantities off them, and etc. with that. Question 2: are you of the opinion that the BIM will radically change the traditional service provided by QS? Yes and no. I suppose we're still going to be QS, we're still going to be validation, and Trevor kind of into that. It's going to be more of a validation more so than taking up quantities. Quantities will be generated, and whether high level or low level skilled person's doing it, it's going to be generated somehow. The one issue we did generate here was in the validation process as a QS. Traditionally, we're all measuring on scale ruler by hand, by visualization. We all have a good understanding of what a cubic metre concrete is, what a square metre of plasterwork looks like. In say 20 years' time, when some of the QSs are currently coming out, they'll have no physical hand measurement capabilities or understanding of what one of those measurement tools is, and to be able to rationalise and see that a quantity is wrong or an area is wrong or there's something wrong within the building. I'm just concerned that they won't have that understanding without having gone through the manual process over the years of experience that we all have around this table. We didn't get to the third question. Yes, what contribution can the quantity surveying profession make to successful adoption of BIM in Ireland? I suppose it's getting involved day one and with the design team and influencing your thoughts, your ideas and the way you want things. And it's back to the more people using BIM, the more influence you can have it. Go on and on, but that's really what we're about.
Yeah, okay,
All right.
thanks Damien. If you want to maybe ask table 7 then, the answers.
Question 1, I think we decided that everyone in Ireland has been slow to embrace BIM, not just the quantity surveyors. There's amongst the table that the projects that we're using with BIM were UK or American clients. So if the client isn't demanding it, we're not delivering it. There's also a thought that the QS, because maybe they wouldn't be using AutoCAD in design, wouldn't get exposure to the BIM products or BIM information. They wouldn't be getting blasted from the Costex and Revit and all the rest with information and sales pitches. It was a good suggestion that the designer, if he knows the QS will use BIM, will design accordingly, that their design practices would change if they knew that the QS was going to be involved. Question 2, the traditional work, as Trevor pointed out, with the QS will be done more quickly and more often, but it will still need to be done. This will allow the QS to work more as project financial managers, rather than just measuring and producing bills, and will allow the QS to drive the project financially and be able to be involved in an earlier stage more effectively. And I think that's kind of the answer to number 3.
Okay, thank you. So we'll probably just do one more table because I think our time is running quite short, so we might take table 2.
Angus Callan, which is available there in Galway. First question there, we definitely think there's been a slow uptake. There's a fear, obviously, that BIM is going to reduce the workload, particularly for PQSs. The slow to embrace issue has been accelerated by some of the problems that Trevor identified, such as accuracy, the no demand from clients, etc. It's particularly now only just coming in from foreign direct investment companies and pharmaceutical companies who are pushing it. The slow to embrace also has been accelerated, as we said, by getting. Traditionally, the QS is not seen as part of the design process, that he's, as the over-the-wall diagram illustrated, he's at the end of the process. So that probably just leads us on to, well, it's part of question 3 then, that early engagement in the design process isn't something that quantity surveyors generally take part in. So it's definitely a contribution towards early involvement in the BIM process in Ireland. The traditional services, well, yes and no again, as one of the speakers illustrated. It's kind of, it'll lead to a change in emphasis of the services that you provide. So if the BIM models are correct, you know, there'll be lesser time spent, but more often, and also an increase in the value-added services that you can provide, such as whole of life, carbon costings, etc. So the contributions then, as I said, early involvement in the design process, you can contribute by increasing your value-added services that the traditional QS wouldn't normally be trained in or have experience in. Then you can, the early involvement would lead to improved collaboration, you know, a lot of the problems that the table spoke about here were people problems, such as the issues that Trevor spoke as. So early involvement would eventually lead to ironing out some of them issues. I think that's all we have really.
Okay, thank you, Angus. So I think we'll collect the answers at the end, and we'll put them in as part of the report, which will be available on the website. But I think the same theme is kind of coming through there on questions.